We saw Andy McBride open the bowling for Ireland over in Bristol. Do you think that's something that they'll employ again here?
I doubt it. I think that was just because Quinton de Kock was opening. Of course, he's left-handed. Afghanistan got 2 right-handers here, so I suspect we'll see as a quick single taken there. I think Osman had made his ground there, regardless of the direct hit. But yes, no, I don't think I would be surprised. I think they have used Andy McBride more or less exclusively in a matchup role this summer to left-handers, bar 1 or 2 exceptions. And the last time he bowled consistently to a pair of right-handers was that last over against South Africa, where Mr. Aidan Markham took a liking to him. So I think we will see more seam.
Yeah, I think the overs, though, from McBride, Gareth Delaney, George Dockrell in the middle could prove to be important. Looked a dry pitch out there this afternoon. Quite unlike, I suppose, Irish conditions that we're almost used to. It looks a pitch and potentially a square that's been starved of rain of recent weeks here in Stormont. It's been lovely and got a pitch according to that.
Well, Stormont spins even when it isn't dry, so I think that's definitely an indicator of what we're going to see later on. And it wasn't surprising to see Afghanistan win that toss and bat with their spinners that they've got to bring on as the game progresses.
It's been a tidy start from Little, though. We'll be looking to get through his first over without a boundary, and that's just been helped on its way by Ghani. Just round the corner, Lorcan Tucker unable to get his hands on it, and it goes away for 4. First boundary of the afternoon. Afghanistan 5 without loss after 1.
Yeah, Josh Little continuing with that heavy length here early on. There's definitely a plan here to really dig it into these Afghan batters early on, but just gets it wrong on that top. One of those in-between deliveries, not really high enough to do any damage. Waist height, easy for Osman Ghani just to tickle that one around the corner.
Yeah, good way for Ghani to get his account underway. And a first boundary for the Afghan team this afternoon. And as you predicted, Nathan, we are going to see more seam from the Dundonald end of the ground this time. Mark Adair, who's had a very good summer with both bat and ball for this Irish side, for his Interpro side, the Northern Knights. Nice shot from Gurbaz into that offside, but the cover sweeper is out. Deep cover and deep square leg, the 2 fielders employed outside the ring for Adair at this early stage. And I think if the first over or 2 is anything to go by, we're going to have a loud and boisterous Afghanistan crowd here this afternoon.
Yeah, I was on the train up from Dublin this morning, and there are certainly quite a few Afghan flags in the carriage, and they do travel well, unsurprisingly.
Flashing outside that off stump was Ghani there. Just trying to use a small bit of width on offer. Wasn't really there from Adair.
Yeah, I suspect Mark Adair might have gotten away with that one a little bit. Generally speaking, that's exactly what openers in T20 cricket are looking for, just that width. And that sweeper was pretty straight. And after that delivery, he's just been moved a little bit square on the offside. Perhaps a sign that Adair is going to persist with offering a little bit of width outside off.
Well, he does, and driven away, but just a little slip from Ghani at the non-strikers. Then you can see he's on the ground there. Mark Adair lifting him to his feet, but just a single, that cover sweeper getting plenty of action at this early stage. I suppose another omission from the Afghanistan side is Hazratullah Zazai, who has been a thorn in Ireland's side in years gone by, that's for sure. And they're going to miss him at the top with his, I suppose, brutish power. Again goes short of there. Really a ploy being used here to Gurbaz, and he's yet to get bat on ball.
Yeah, they've definitely seen something. Analyst Scott Irvine is earning his money's worth today, apart from that one rank waist high short ball from Little. Ireland have got their short ball plans pretty spot on so far. Afghanistan haven't been able to get back to ball too often.
prompts Gurbaz to try something out of the ordinary there, using his feet, trying to go over extra cover. A bit of a shake of the head from him after playing the shot, and I think from Mark Adair and from Ireland's point of view, you'd be very glad to see Gurbaz try to take on those types of shots at such an early stage.
I think so, yeah. And you can have a look at his score there, 2 off 7. Clearly those dot balls playing on his mind, and like you said, that's exactly what Ireland want him to be doing at this stage.
Just punched away, just going to be 1, so a boundaryless over. They're worth their weight in gold in the power play. Good start from Ireland. Afghanistan 8 without loss after 2.
Excellent start from Ireland. Like we said, 8 without loss after 2. Just the 1 boundary so far. It's been interesting. Afghanistan probably chewing up two more dot balls than they would like to at this stage of the innings. Josh Little's going to continue. Gurbaz on strike. Having a look at this field. It is interesting if they do continue with the short ball ploy to him, because they do have fine leg inside the circle, so it's a case of maybe that they're trying to keep it somewhat hidden.
Little continuing to Gurbaz. And again trying to slash that one away. Trying to make use of any type of width on offer there, Gurbaz, staying slightly leg side of the ball, but as we see sometimes in these T20s at Storm and Nathan, it's just in that first 4 or 5 overs a little bit difficult to adapt.
I think it is one of those pitches that is a little bit too paced, isn't it? So it can take a few overs, like you said, to get used to it. I'm not quite sure of the shot there from Gurbaz, though. He's almost sitting on the back foot trying to carve that one over point instead of staying strong and trying to hit straight.
Trying to use the pace there, Gurbaz. He's just struggling ever so slightly, and Josh Little letting him know about it as well. A little friendly word from Josh, and I often feel when he's in that type of chirpy mood, Josh Little, he's actually bowling at his best. Very good piece of work from Dockrell at backward point. Again, another dot. These are all just building a little bit, and it's very good skills from Little, just taking the pace off the ball on that occasion. More dots here to Gurbaz.
Yeah, I make that 9 dot balls so far, and we're in the 3rd over already. This is excellent stuff from Ireland. Perhaps cashing in a little bit like what we said. Afghan batters haven't batted in a while, and perhaps the pitch is being a little bit too paced out there.
Pulled away straight by Gurbaz. Didn't get much on it, but gets enough that it's just a single. Barry McCarthy, I believe, at mid-on there, sprawling away to his left, does well. And I think the more and more, when you've built up that amount of dot balls, the more and more you can go along from Ireland's point of view without boundaries being conceded, the better.
100%. You can see Gurbaz there as well. He's sitting back, he's waiting for that short ball there. He was onto it very early. You can see how straight he's hitting it. He didn't get anywhere near the middle of the bat there, so even though he was waiting for it, perhaps a sign that, again, he is struggling a little bit to get used to the pace of this pitch.
Well, Mohammed Nabi was saying out at the toss, really, that all these guys come in with plenty of cricket behind them, of course, playing in their own domestic T20 league, and there's a couple of them that have gone over and played a few games in the 100 as well, but at the same stage, much different playing in those Asian conditions than playing here in Stormont. Completely different type of test, especially for a batter. Gani drills that one through the offside. A little half stop from Andy Balbirnie. Got a hand on it. Means that another boundary's avoided from an Irish point of view. 2 runs from that last ball. 3 runs from the over. Good start. Afghanistan 11 without loss after 3.
Well, this certainly looks interesting. One of the subfielders for Ireland, Fionn Hand, is bringing on the helmet, and that's because Andy McBride's going to bowl. And I think Andy Balbirnie is saying, right, we're going to give you a chance here to go after the off spin and release some pressure, but on this pitch, that might be a bit of a risk, especially when you're a little bit out of nick and struggling. Very fascinating part of the game coming up here.
Yes, Andy McBride coming into the attack from the Dundonald end, long on and a deep mid-wicket. The two fielders out. It's probably the longer side as well, hitting out towards mid-wicket from the Dundonald end for a right-hander today. So they're, as you say, they're kind of giving the little tempter here to Gurbaz and Ghani. If they want to make up runs, maybe now's the time. Oh, it's edged away. It's going to run away as well. Run away to the fence. It wasn't in control by any means by Gurbaz. A genuine edge. McBride can count himself a little bit unlucky there. But for Amanullah Gurbaz, a needed boundary.
Well, you said they might make up some runs. I don't think they planned on making them up that way. Perhaps that one just skidded on. Ball still slightly new. Didn't quite grip as much, and it just took that outside edge.
That's a much better shot from Gurbaz. Goes straight, goes hard, and straight into those advertising hoardings by the sight screen. And McBride on the back foot early here, and Gurbaz beginning to get into his work.
It's good to see from Gurbaz. Ireland have taken the risk. They've gone for the wicket-taking option with the spin. Gurbaz has just played a really strong cricket shot down the ground. A bit of luck at the ball previous, but he's cashing in so far.
Pulls this one straight. Harry Hector's down there long on, so just going to be one. Gurbaz gave himself that little bit of time, and those couple of boundaries certainly have helped in bringing him back near that run of ball.
It was an interesting call bringing on off-spin to Gurbaz. I'm just looking at his numbers here. His career T20 strike rate is in the 130s, but against off-spin it's 150, so he does like the off-spin, so it certainly was a risk to bring McBride onto him.
And swept away, high in the air, but that's going to run away again. A couple of bounces, and into the fence it goes, and Gurbaz has certainly liked this idea of going to spin in the power play. He's got 3 boundaries in the over. He's up to 17. Afghanistan beginning to get on a roll.
Yeah, it's a really good option from Gurbaz. Square leg is up, so a sweep is a pretty safe option, and McBride just put a little bit of extra pace on that one as well, so even though it was a top edge, it was never really going to be a threat for Gurbaz.
Good cricket from Gurbaz. Just gets a single from that final delivery. A very profitable over for Afghanistan. 15 runs from it, 26 without loss after 4.
Well, the risk for off-spin didn't quite work there, did it? The first delivery was definitely fortuitous with the nick down to third man, but from then on Gurbaz played that over brilliantly. One down the track, one sweet shot over square leg. It's just lifted that pressure on Afghanistan.
Another change in bowling for Ireland, a double change. Barry McCarthy is going to come into the attack now. Barry is a wicket-taking bowler, can be expensive at times. Interesting to see how Gurbaz approaches him, and he approaches him by flat batting him straight down the ground. And for a 1-bounce 4, I thought that might have been our first 6 of the afternoon, but certainly some way to welcome Barry McCarthy into the attack.
Well, he tried to play that short ball down the ground off Little, and we saw him get absolutely nowhere near the middle of the bat. This one, again, he's just sitting back in the crease. Perhaps McCarthy doesn't quite have the pace of Little to challenge him on that length, and he was waiting on that delivery, and the fact that he has played that shot now, he's more attuned to the pace of the pitch. I wonder if that means Ireland will rethink their plans.
Pulled away again, and I think that's going to skip away. It is. Into the fence it goes. Gurbaz started off sluggishly, but none of that no more. Moves to 26 off 19, and this isn't the first time we've seen with Ireland, Nathan. Those first couple of overs, very good, and in overs 4, 5 and 6 of the power play, they let it slip slightly.
Well, I think it's a combination of these guys have been in for 3 overs, so they are going to cash in on the power play at some point the longer they bat, but also I think, he's been in for the length of time that he has, and he's seen that the plan is to get into him. He's sitting back and waiting for it, so I think now, if not after the previous delivery, after that ball, the plan certainly has to change. Just like that, just a few inches fuller there from McCarthy.
Yeah, it's a good length that from McCarthy. I can see what they're going for, this Irish seam attack, considering in the New Zealand series bowling that slightly bit shorter seemed to be very profitable, getting players to play out towards the squarer boundaries here in Stormont, but you have to be so fine with the length you're bowling.
For sure, I completely agree with the plan to make them hit square, but when the deliveries that you're trying to bowl to make them hit square end up being slapped back straight back over your head, then that's an indication that the execution wasn't quite there.
Much better length from Barry McCarthy, and he's come back nicely, having gone for those 2 boundaries off his first 2 balls. 2 needed dot balls, boost the confidence. You can see Harry Tector there running in from mid-off for a high 5. It's just all about building up Barry McCarthy's confidence here and trying to make sure that he can get out of this over relatively unscathed.
Change of field now as well. The offside sweeper has come up and Longman has gone out, so he definitely isn't going to give him anything full, that is for sure. Drivable through the offside.
That's spooned in the air. Tector ever so slightly misjudged it initially, but he's come in and taken a very, very easy catch. A little smile on his face, and I'm sure a big smile on Barry McCarthy's face. He's come back brilliantly there, having gone for 2 boundaries, and he gets the big wicket of Ramanullah Gurbaz, who goes for 26.
I think that's a wicket for the skipper there, and whoever made the field change. Maybe McCarthy made it himself. You could see Gurbaz backing away to the leg side, trying to access that offside that was now vacant with the sweeper having just come up. Digs it in. Good length from McCarthy, and he's not able to get underneath it sufficiently to get over the top.
Yeah, you can see there just all went wrong for Gurbaz. The bat slightly twisting in the hands. Goes for 26 off 22. There was 5 boundaries in there as well, so it was a bright and breezy innings, but it's come to a close. And Barry McCarthy, we so often say that he's a man that takes wickets, and he's done so to good effect there. In at number 3 for Afghanistan is Hazmatullah Shahidi. Shahidi's the first left-hand batter we're going to see from this Afghanistan side, so they have now this left-hand, right-hand option, which we see so often being a key component of T20 batting.
And it will be very interesting to see what they do after this delivery from the other end. Now they have that left-hander in. They stick with McBride in the power play, especially now that Gurbaz is gone. Of course, he was the one who hit those 3 boundaries off McBride previously.
It's edged away. It's going to be a boundary to start for Shahidi. By no means where he wanted it to go, but a 4 nonetheless to complete the 5th over. Afghanistan 38 for 1. As you can see there, just a thick edge from Shahidi. Didn't really get his feet to the ball. But 5 overs gone, a pretty good start from both sides, really. Even Stevens at this stage. And myself and Nathan will bid you adieu for a few overs and welcome in Alan Lewis and Bavi Devchand.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And nice to be back again, Bavi. On Com's beautiful day here in the ward with Mark Adair resuming.
See another edge fly down past third man for 4 runs. Certainly is a beautiful day for it, and the first 5 overs have had it all. We've had a few boundaries, we've had a wicket, followed up by 3 magnificent overs to start the innings.
Absolutely. It's an interesting kind of tactic, and just something I'm not really too sure about it. Mark Adair bowled an excellent first over, 11 off 3 overs. Bobby, why give away the momentum? You know, particularly when you've got 4 seamers, you have a lot of bowling options in the team. Something I don't quite understand. And again, that's going to go down to third man, really. And it's the V behind the wicket that's producing most of the runs right here.
There's been a fair amount of edges through slips, hasn't there? Even that first ball, as you spoke about with Andy McBride, although he went for a fair few runs, it was an edge through slip. So we see Adair rolling in here, very good bouncer, and it's a bottom edge that's run through. Fair bit of luck falling the way of the Afghanistan team at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've got deep square leg. We've got third man and fine leg in the ring. We've got a sweeper on the offside, which obviously tells you you're going to be short. So anything that's swished at, as we've seen, okay, that's collected by Josh Little well. But it's an interesting tactic, Bobby, isn't it, that one of those isn't on the boundary, and you might just try and force with a ring on the offside.
Yeah, you have to take a risk, don't you, at some point? And if you're going to bowl that short length, the risk is that there's a lot of edges that will go behind the wicket. Do you bring that offside field up and back yourself in? I think it's sometimes a bit of luck. Which way is it going to go? But from what we've seen, I do agree that would be the right way to go. So see another short pitch ball there, and unfortunately the batter misses out there. I think that was one to hit. Gave him a little bit too much width on that occasion. I could see that again going through third man for 4 if there was any amount of bat on it.
Just had a look of maybe being slower ball bouncer. He was through the shot really before it came to him, but you're right, Bavy, it's a high risk strategy.
Looks like they are making a change in the field here as long on goes out. And that deep cover that you're talking about, Alan, comes into the ring. Wouldn't be surprised to see him go full and straight here.
That's good pressure from Curtis Camphor, alive there, anticipated really well to prevent the single. Just Ireland seem to have a little bit more bounce in their stride today in the field. I have been a little bit sluggish in some of the previous games, and it's something that you can constantly work on, as we all know.
Another very good delivery executed there, full and straight, to close off the 6th over. Afghanistan are 47 for 1. As you mentioned, fielding there is something that's very much in your control in terms of that energy you bring, and the coaching staff would certainly be pushing them to say if that's one thing that you can do is you field well and you bring that energy in no matter what. And you can certainly see a difference compared to previous games with the Irish team. They're buzzing about, they're making a lot of saves. And that reflects straight into the bowlers who are able to come in and execute.
So there we have it. Secret for Afghanistan has been Ireland's failing. They're only 1 wicket down, 47 still after 6. And when you consider they were 11 off 3 overs, you can see the damage that has gone in the meantime. But it's a good start. Afghanistan will be happy with that. Nearly at 8s. And that will definitely please them as McBride comes back into the attack now, obviously out of the power play with a bit more cover. Should be somewhat easier.
Change of ends here for McBride too. He's coming in from the city end. Right on the money straight away, and that's the area he's going to look to operate in early on. A little bit too much width and then a little bit too much length to work with. If he's hitting that skiddy area in and around there, it makes it a lot harder for the batters to get under him.
Could be a chance. Oh, it's not. It's gone flat and it's gone hard and it's gone for 6.
Again, that's the width, however, so he's hit his length there, but a little bit too much width there. Although in saying that, it wasn't too far off the long off fielder down there in George Dockrell. So we
kind of slapped here, really. We'll see it again. Extraordinary shot. Again, that wrist work, something that is so prevalent within Asian cricket, the use of the wrists, whether it's to guide the ball into gaps for singles or get the ball over the boundary like that. We've had the aeroplane shots, we've had whatever you want to say that Rashid Khan does, but it has everything when he gets going, and it certainly isn't orthodox.
The old helicopter shot. It was interesting watching Gurbaz as well. His swing plane was a lot more like a baseballer. He's not a big guy. Especially you see him in comparison to the big fast bowlers coming in. He's quite small, but he's athletic, and he uses that swing plane to get under the ball and played some magnificent shots off length balls straight back over the bowler's head. So we see Shahidi tuck one in, just getting into his innings here.
Of course, the dynamic of right and left hand spinners on, field changing the whole time. He's just looking to keep that strike rotating.
Little pre-movement there from Ghani, trying to put the bowler off or create a little bit of room for herself, but at the end McBride held his line really well. And it's just the one. It's been a good run of 3 balls now, so we've got 3 singles, but at the end of the day, that boundary getting hit for 6, and there's already 9 off the over.
And that brings us to the end of the 7th. Afghanistan 56 for 1.
It's a good close from Andy McBride. 4 balls in a row there just for the 3 runs. That little bit of width in the 1 ball, and that's the hard part about T20 cricket. You get 1 ball wrong against a team like Afghanistan, who are very, very good against spin. That blows out to 9 all of a sudden. However, it's a very good comeback from his first over that went for 15.
Well, the impressive feature outside of the 6-hitting ability is just to keep that strike rotating, both getting deep in the crease.
We have a change in bowling, and Gareth Delaney into the attack, who had a fantastic series against the South Africans over in Bristol. Was clearly the best bowler for Ireland with his leg spinners. He's got quite a tall action and skids it through. He'll bowl quite quick through the air, and I think he might get a little bit of assistance out of the pitch today, depending on that ball. It is quite new and a little bit skiddy at the moment, but because of that high release point, it can make it a little bit more difficult to judge exactly where the ball's going to be, when and how it's going to come through onto the bat.
Well, being a leg spinner yourself, Bavi, you've been impressed with Gareth Delaney.
Very much so. As you can see there, he's got quite an upright action, so his arm, not the most traditional in terms of the long format. The late, great Shane Warne was a lot more round arm. You talk about him coming in from, say, 2 o'clock on a clock face. Gareth Delaney is up at about 12, but as we'll see later with the Afghanistan spinners, in T20 cricket, it's not so much about ragging it square as it is being able to change your pace a lot, being able to bowl a little bit quicker through the air, and that's something he's able to generate by being taller.
Well, you're only looking really for maybe 2 inches of turn just to either get the edge of the bat or get past it onto the pad.
I'm sure either of these batters wouldn't have really played Gareth Delaney too much, so wouldn't be surprised to have a look, see what he's got in his arsenal. They would have seen a lot of footage, but it's always different actually being out there and facing them and getting a gauge for it, and also getting a gauge for the conditions too.
And this is good from Delaney. And I think, again, the longer there's a bit of faith in Gareth Delaney, it's so important really when you look at the power base in T20 cricket around the world, is amount of good leg spinners. No sign even of Noor Ahmed here today.
So him play a fantastic sweep shot through the offside, piercing between long on and cow corner. And yes, Noor Ahmed, I was very much looking forward to watching him bowl, but not in the starting 11 today. He's a left arm orthodox spinner that challenges both sides of the bat, as we see a fantastic shot here, just getting down on the one knee, and something you see a lot in T20 cricket these days is piercing those scraps in the sweepers on the leg side.
Well, it's the regularity with which they hit the gap that is the most fascinating part about it for me. He knew exactly square, deep square is quite square, and there's a lot of distance between him and Andy McBride at long on.
That's really good from Gareth Delaney. So he's hardly missed the stumps there. And he's gone the one boundary again, but only 7 off the over. At the end of the 8th over, Afghanistan is 63 for 1.
Yeah, good over that from Delaney. Nice and tidy. You wouldn't have called it a blemish. It was just a very good shot from Afridi. So a lot of young players have come into this Afghanistan team. And again, they're looking to expand and grow a nation. Their cricket has just gone from strength to strength. Of course, competed in the last ODI World Cup and have been a regular feature at T20 events.
See a change in bowler with Barry McCarthy coming back into the attack. He's been fairly expensive over the last few games for Ireland, but he just has that knack of picking up wickets, as we've seen here today, going for a few runs, but able to snare that wicket. He's right on the money to start with. That's the length, that's the line. It's really difficult to create anything there. And yes, you're allowed to play a good shot in T20 cricket. The batters are allowed to play that. But as a bowling unit, Ireland just need to get that little bit better at hitting those areas more often so that the batters then have to take the risk to create something.
Couldn't agree more, Bavy, particularly at the pace Barry McCarthy bowls. Banging away on off stump, top of off stump. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's just that little bit of width at that pace. Beautiful shot there from Ghani, throwing his hands through it as it goes away for 4. And the problem with bowling that pace, as you say, Louis, is that the moment you slightly miss, and all that was just that little bit of width. At the similar length, you could say it was a little bit short, but I think it's that width that makes it way too easy for a batsman of this class to throw their hands through.
Again, all that weight transitioning into the ball, and it's sped to the boundary, backward a square. Fantastic shot.
We saw Wayne Parnell for South Africa, and he's someone that's come in and bowled at 130 kilometres an hour. He's not coming in at 150 and bowling absolute rockets, but what he does do is he's got 1 or 2 change-ups, which are really, really good, and he very, very rarely misses. He's hitting that area that we saw in the first and the third ball of this over and over again. And sometimes we overcomplicate things. It's about hitting those simple areas, but at the same time, you change a little bit within that.
Well, I think another feature was, and you're absolutely right, he attacked the stump. That's the other secret, really. You want to just try and keep width out of the equation if you can. McCarthy now. Coming round the wicket to Shahidi. 10 from 7. Delivery so far. Ghani 32 from 22 after a very good opening from Ireland. Afghanistan have progressed very well.
It's a good piece of fielding again. You did mention Ireland have looked very sharp out there today.
Well, it's interesting too, isn't it? Looking at the stats Afghanistan have played very little T20 cricket in the last while. Calendar year, only 10 games to Ireland's 30. And it'll certainly be a series that's going to be of great interest. To both sides as both prepare for the World Cup in Australia.
Absolutely, there's a massive difference in the amount of games played there. McCarthy just drifting down the leg side, and again, that's just too easy. So those two bad balls is far too easy to pick up off the legs there, and puts it away for 6 down on the leg side.
Poor delivery, this really. It's just helped on its way. Just didn't get his line right at all, Barry McCarthy. And that was just helped on its way for 6. Down to those Afghan supporters. Healthy crowd of Afghan supporters around the ground here. All dressed up in their native colours, a lot of flag waving, very excitable crowd. That's good. Good fielding from Andy McBride. Saved some runs there. Brings us to the end of the 9th. Afghanistan 75 for 1.
As we see there, it's effectively, again, just those 2 deliveries. Isn't it? So we've had the 2 deliveries. One's a leg stump half volley, the other one was short and wide outside off, and all of a sudden you've gone for 12 to 13 off your over, as opposed to the other 4 were excellent. They're all hitting the top of off stump, as you said, bringing those stumps into play. It's just that consistency. Piece. You can bowl slow balls, you do have to change the pace, but at the end of the day, it's so important to be able to hit those areas as many times as you can.
As you say, Bavi, they've advanced to 75 for the loss of 1 wicket without a huge amount of fuss. And again, mostly what they've done is they've punished the bad ball. And Ireland really need to probably need to put together a very good 3 or 4 overs here to try and pull themselves back a bit. They could be looking down the barrel of another chase in order 200 runs.
It's interesting. We see George Dockrell come into the attack with Gareth Delaney actually bowling a really good over from this end previously. So the Afghanistan batters don't get used to the likes of Gareth Delaney, but also sometimes if they do bowl a good over, that's what we like to see. Give them a chance. You never know what might happen.
George Dockrell, interestingly, coming round the wicket here, you're taking a lot of dismissals out of the equation with that choice. Obviously, heavy populated leg side.
Very close to the wide line. Now, I think with the angle of the left arm around, it makes it a lot more difficult to play that sweep shot that we saw from Shahidi previously. And we know he's a really good sweeper of the ball. He's making it a little bit more difficult and forcing him to play out into that offside with the angle. That would be my guess on the tactic there. So far so good. It's 3 dots to start the over. And that one's very wide, almost off the pitch. In fact.
This is the only second time this year Ireland have bowled 3 spinners, which is interesting. And more of that really has been to do with more confidence and faith in Dockrell, who's got vast experience on the elevation of Gareth Delaney. And could be.
So we see one get up in the air and caught at fine leg. A fantastic catch by Paul Sterling running back. And that's exactly what we're talking about with George Dockrell. Coming around the wicket, it does take LBW out of the equation, but to play that sweep shot, that Shahidi is so good at, he's got to go across the line there, and that brings into the equation that top edge. It makes it really difficult to score. So 3 dots leading into a wicket. Fantastic start for George Dockrell.
Could have been a planned move, spoken about prior to the game, looking to come round the wicket to the left-hander, and as you say, not really in control there, Shahidi, at all, and a very comfortable catch in the end from Paul Sterling. Made something that you might do at training a lot, Pavi, all very simple. So 2 down in the 10th now for Afghanistan.
With that wicket and the warm conditions today, they're taking a drinks break out there with the fall of that wicket.
Well, this is a novel thing for me, Bavi. Drinks break after 10 overs in Ireland, hey?
Apparently it's warm today, which I'd have to say this would be a mild day in Australia. I'd say a mild day in Afghanistan too.
I've had a few freezy ones in Melbourne, Bavi, it has to be said. It's not exactly... You get good days and you get some absolute... You could have the overcoat on one day and it's 38 degrees the next.
Yes, very famous Melbourne for having the 4 seasons in the one day. However, I'm not sure we'd be having a drinks break in the middle of a T20 on a day like this.
Pretty novel idea, that. Of course, you've got the 2.5-minute timeouts in the IPL. You've got these 4-hour T20 games that seem to go on for an eternity. Well, someone has to pay the bills.
We're back here with 2 balls remaining in the 10th over. George Dockrell, fantastic start, 1 for 1 at the moment.
Abdullah Zadran to the wicket now, joining Ghani, who's played very well. Lovely soft hands there. That's something we talked about. Possible failing within Ireland in the middle overs. Tend to hit the ball, look to try and hit the ball hard all the time. And that's a lovely example of really controlled effort. Just to take a very easy single with those soft hands. Love seeing that.
Yeah, it's the key to playing spin, particularly at this level. If you can rotate it plus the 1 boundary, all of a sudden you're 9 at 10 and over. But however, with Ireland, as we've seen, there's a lot of dots in between those boundaries. Very well bowled from George Dockrell again. So just the 1 off it and a fantastic start for him. At the end of the 10th over, Afghanistan are 78 for 2.
Thank you very much, Bavi, who leaves us, and I'm delighted to be joined back again by Andrew Blair-White.
Thank you, Alan.
Your thoughts so far, Andrew?
It's probably even Stevens halfway here for Afghanistan. This next probably 3 or 4 overs, absolutely critical in the context of this game, I think. If Ireland can manage to maybe sneak another wicket or 2 and prevent that run rate escalating at this stage, could be key.
Well, we've spoken many times before watching Ireland play, Andrew, these kind of 1-over bursts, and you were on commentary, a very tidy beginning, 11 from 3 overs, and Adair was taken out of the attack. When you've got 4 seamers at your disposal plus 3 spinners, you've so many bowling options. I often wonder why, and I'm a little bit perplexed that you certainly wouldn't give Adair another one, or even in fact a third, particularly in the power play, to keep that pressure on, because obviously the fourth over from McBride went for 15.
It just seems to be a little bit of a running trend at the moment with this Irish team, that overs 4, 5 and 6 can be expensive in the power play. I know it's a very, very hard ask bowling at that stage, but they seem to bowl very tightly for those first couple of overs. Josh Little and Mark Adair have been exemplary in the last month and a half. But just letting teams slightly get into their work, and then having to put in hard yards to try and restrain in the middle. Tell you what has been encouraging though has just been the summer that George Dockrell's had, but with bat, and now it's so nice to see him back with the ball in his hand and bowling with real confidence.
Well, of course, Andrew has vast experience, and I would wholeheartedly agree, went through a very difficult spell with the ball. Lost his contract, fought back, and that's a great sign in itself. I think that's a fair call from Paul Reynolds. That was well above head high. Choose Adran there. When he bowls that bumper to Adair, he's got that extra bit of pace about him. Again, if it can be probably more of a surprise package and he can get the direction of it just that little bit better in terms of its height. Lovely wristy players, the Afghans, aren't they?
They're lovely to watch when in full flow, and I suspect they're adapting to conditions as much as anything here, really, in this first 10.5 overs. Plenty of them coming from their home domestic T20 league and playing in these Asian conditions. This is a very different proposition they're being faced with here. Mark Adair gets penalised with a wide there. That looked perhaps a hint harsh. Mark Adair not happy.
No, Usman Ghani looked to give himself a little bit of room and gave umpire Paul Reynolds a wee bit of a stare and a glare. And Paul Duty feel obliged by giving a wide, possibly a little bit harsh there.
This time adjudged to be within that blue guideline. They're wide outside that off stump. You can see this is obviously the plan. They've got a deep backward point, a deep cover. So Adair is going to bowl wide to Ghani, not allow him play down the ground and maybe into that mid-wicket zone. Over to the scoreboard at mid-wicket is probably the smallest boundary we've got this afternoon. So trying to keep away from that hitting zone.
Well, he's counted to 40 off 27. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, where did he get those? It's just a lovely sign of a good player. You look at the scoreboard and you wonder, he's 30 not out or he's 40 not out, and you kind of go, where?
Yeah, there's been some free-flowing strokes in there. They tested him out early on with the short ball ploy. Had to be put in the bin relatively quickly. Showed to be well adept to that. Slower again from Adair. It's just going to be a single down the ground. A good over. Again, using all of his nous, all of his skills. Mark Adair. 11 gone. Afghanistan 84 for 2. That's the card at the moment. Gurbaz started brightly for his 26. Shahidi, the other man, gone for 11, a wicket apiece for Barry McCarthy and George Dockrell. But Usman Ghani, as you mentioned, on that over, Alan, 41 not out, and it's been a very pleasurable knock.
Very pleasurable knock. And we talk about every ball, every sequence, just when you were off air with Bhavi Shant talking about a really important 4-over spell, 5-over spell now in this middle period. That's been a good 2 overs for Ireland.
Gareth Delaney coming back into the attack, bowled nicely in his first over. Now, perhaps I'm a little bit old school at times, Alan, but what on earth has George Dockrell done to deserve being taken off?
Sometimes I wonder. Sometimes I wonder. I think the other part of it makes you wonder is, in a sense, Shahidi, a left-hander, George Dockrell dismissed. His over went for either 2 or 3. And as you say, he's off. We've Zadran, a left-hander, in, just new to the crease. Sometimes I wonder, Andrew, these types of decisions, rationale, reasons why. Someday I might be told.
Plundered into that leg side by Zadran. Just going to be one off the thick inside edge of the bat. Delaney did bowl very nicely in his first over. Not for a second questioning that. It just seems to be that the modern day way that these one-over spells are becoming more and more just par for the course. And I think when somebody's bowled as good an over as Dockrell has, seems a little bizarre. He just pushes that into the leg side and looking for 2. Good work from Andy McBride out at deep backward square. Means that they can't get back, and Ghani has to settle for just 1.
Well, we spoke in the previous series, and it's kind of less relevant when you've got a right and a left-hander in, Andrew. But there's no reason why both couldn't, particularly with these two at the wicket, bowl in tandem as an example. Obviously, this side, the pavilion side, is certainly the bigger hit.
Just cut away by Zadran, and that fielder out on the offside boundary, George Dockrell, is very square. So obviously thinking that Zadran may go for one of those reverse options, going square of the wicket, meant that that ball that was cut away to where you'd usually see a regular deep cover, they get back for 2.
I think what they're trying to do, and you can kind of clearly see from this end, is go wide to kind of prevent those clubbing hits to the shorter boundary on Zadran's leg side. But this is good again from Delaney. We spoke about him off air, how he's developing as a leg spinner, and a worthy leg spinner to be bowling in this international side.
Pulled away. Again, doesn't find the gap though, and a good piece of work from Andy McBride keeps it down to just 1. It's a good over for Ireland. In the end, ends the 12th over. Afghanistan at 91 for 2.
Pretty much so. A good spell of 3 overs this from Ireland. Balbirnie will be pleased. There's the captain. He'll be pleased so far. It's just something, again, kind of a thing if he can, Andy Balbirnie, just get round his bowlers a little bit more. Many times they've done a good job for him. Just get round them a little bit more. It's something that you'd see a lot with Owen Morgan, captain of England, takes his time, always talking about plans. And Little is back in the attack, Ireland's premier bowler.
I think this is a good option. Try to take that wicket. Josh Little coming back into the attack. Just 20 balls since the last boundary, so you can certainly see that it's been a good little period of the game for Ireland. I want to keep that going as much as possible. I said when I came on at the 10 over period, this next 3-4 overs absolutely crucial, and they've done well thus far.
Certainly have. Josh Little was getting up to speeds of 142, 143. Certainly Ireland's quickest bowler by a straight. And having had a difficult opening game against South Africa, came back wonderfully. That's the type of character that he is. And I kind of think if he can find someone to work with, obviously he'll be speaking with Ryan Eagleson, the bowling coach, but just to try and find a way of getting that ball to come back into the right-hander, that classical left-arm seamer's delivery. And I'm certainly not skilled enough to talk about it, but I do remember Mike Hendrick in the early days, the start of professional coaching, the amount of really good work he did with the seam bowlers was invaluable.
Just tucked off the hip for one from Zadran. You can see there he gets so deep in his crease, so he's really trying to make sure that that pitched up ball that potentially may be Yorker length can be turned into something near on in the slot, and he can go over that long on area that he favours so much.
Again, another feature of Afghanistan so far is this strike rotation, which we've spoken about for quite some time.
It's pulled away, and deep square leg is actually in the ring at square leg, so it's going to run away to the boundary. First one in quite a while, 23 delivery since the last one, but Ghani just rolls his wrists on that, beats McCarthy in at square leg, and moves to 49 in the process.
He's just one away from T20 milestone at a very healthy strike rate. 49 now from 34 deliveries. And that's Ghani's single. Oh, and they're going for a second and get home comfortably, but that's 50 for Ghani, his fourth 50 in T20I, his second versus Ireland, 73 in Dehradun 2019. A wonderfully controlled innings, Andrew.
Yeah, Super Knock has had everything in it. Usman Ghani, 35 deliveries, 5 fours and 2 sixes. Been some power in there, there's been finesse in there. And he's in a very good position to bring his Afghanistan side to a good total on this Stormont pitch. It's going to be 4 more, and that's the worry with bowling that type of line. When you've got third man in, I know they've a deep backward point, they've a deep cover, but you get a thick edge on that and go straight over, Andy McBride said, and away to the boundary.
I think another thing you'll notice with Usman Ghani, his hands are quite far apart and he's got a devilish wrist action in getting through the ball, and that would be partly the reason why. You can see it there, Andrew. That's pure natural instinct, and it's the end of the 13th with Afghanistan 104 for 2.
Yeah, good over there for Afghanistan just after their progress had perhaps been stunted a little bit after the wicket of Shahidi. Back firing away with a couple of boundaries in that over. Ghani just continues to go on his merry way now, on to 56.
So it's Delaney to continue. No sulks from George Dockrell here on the deep mid-wicket boundary. He must be wondering, what did I do wrong, Skip?
That does seem a little bit bizarre, but Delaney's bowled well in his 2 overs. So credit where it's due, and a good start. Dot ball to start. Ghani trying to sweep that one away hard, but it was pushed through that little bit quicker on this occasion.
You know what sometimes is funny on these occasions? Obviously, Ireland have a suite of 7 bowlers at their disposal. You know, we've had no Curtis Camphor so far, as an example. And often we're left at the end of some of these T20 games, particularly I remember the New Zealand game, Dockrell under pressure had bowled 2 overs for 13, not asked again. And it's sometimes difficult, I will accept, for a captain in circumstances like this, because you've got 7 at your disposal, so there'll always be a little bit of wonderment. But that's a great shot from Zadran, really effortless. Delaney going just that little bit fuller and getting punished accordingly, and it's just one of the features in T20 cricket, Andrew. The minute you toss it up, it's gone.
That's a fantastic shot from Zadran. You kind of feel with Zadran, he's been waiting for that delivery all innings so far. Just that one that he can really get the arms through. Swats it over long off. Beating Markader, beating the rope by quite a distance as well. Cuts away now. Just going to be one. Yeah, well, sometimes, Alan, it can almost be a disadvantage having that many options. I know people like options, and options are good to a certain extent, but so often you see so many of the good sides around the world really have only maybe the 6, you know, and out of the 6, it's 5 with a 6th option. Swept away in the air, and that's a very good piece of work from Andy McBride. A deep square leg to hold that in, and means that it's just a single.
Take 3 off your analysis, Andy McBride. Tremendous piece of work on the boundary from him there to parry the ball into Dockrell again. This is something that's practiced, but did very well there to get that ball back. Certainly saved 3 runs for his team.
Off a tick outside edge, and it's a good catch from McBride. Gareth Delaney gets the wicket, and Zadran, who was beginning to tick, had just put away a big 6 earlier on in this over, has to go. He goes for 15, a needed wicket for Ireland.
Absolutely, and deserved for Gareth Delaney. He's bowled well here today. Just 1 over pitch delivery on that over, which went the distance, but Zadran looking to go squarish again over extra cover, and Delaney just teasing him in that little bit of in drift. And a good catch going backwards from Andy McBride. Looked easier than it was, but he dealt with it really, really well. Zadran goes for 15 from 10. Nothing wrong with that in T20 cricket. So it's 113 for 3 at the end of 14. Interestingly poised, this, Andrew.
Yeah, very much so. I think Ireland have done well in terms of at any stage that Afghanistan have looked to potentially get away from them. They've managed to just about take that wicket on Zadran. There looked like he was beginning to get into his work, and he's such a dangerous player when he does. But danger replaces danger at this stage of the innings for Afghanistan. Mohammad Nabi coming in.
Yeah, vastly experienced player. Played in all the big franchise tournaments all around the world. Very nice man. And has been a huge servant for Afghan cricket over the years.